Good morning, my name's Seven, and I'm here to explain why The Last Jedi sucks. I just came from a midnight screening in Australia. I've had about 2 hours of sleep between when I posted up a original impression and having had a chance to think about it a little bit more. I think I'm more disappointed and more angry about The Last Jedi. So what I'm going to do is explain from what I remember broadly a lot of the plot points, obviously lots of spoilers, and why this has probably been one of the most disappointing Star Wars movies since The Phantom Menace. Now, in hindsight, The Phantom Menace, okay, there were good parts in it, but overall, it's one of those things that you're like, okay. And I think this, The Last Jedi, will actually be regarded in slightly lower terms. It could be possibly the worst Star Wars movie that's been made. So I'd like to go over basically the entire movie and explain my issues with it. So essentially, let's start off. The First Order in the opening crawl reigns through the galaxy, so you would assume that they would be a fairly mighty military machine, good leadership, tacticians, good strategy. Excellent. And so the Resistance has gotten smaller and smaller because in the events of The Force Awakens, obviously the Starkiller base, they've knocked out a lot of the Republic, and so the Resistance are basically reverting back to the rebels. So the rebels are leaving their base, and the fleet turns up, run by General Hux, who is pretty much the same character, so that's fine. So transports are leaving the planet. The fleet shows up, the Imperial fleet, let's say, First Order fleet shows up, and they've got this wacky-do aerial bombardment sort of thing that, of course, takes a really long time to load up. It's massive, it's slow, and that's fine. But you would expect them to jump out of hyperspace and blast the living crap out of everything. Ha ha ha, everyone's dead, good, we can go home now. So instead, they're about to target the base as the last transport leaves, and Poe Dameron turns up in his black X-Wing and proceeds to stall them from blowing up the base. There's no reason for them to stall. They don't care. It's about the destruction of the base and the Resistance in general. So Poe trolls Hux through the online intercom, embarrasses him in front of people, and it's a really awkward humour. It's sort of funny, but it's a bad time for it. It's supposed to get you sucked in, not ha ha ha. Aren't these guys clever? No one can write, screen humour. And of course, with the time that he's delayed them for, he flies his X-wing through this big dreadnought, which is a new sort of capital class ship, and blows up each and every one of the gun turrets at the top, the big gun turrets. Now, this is so stupid because, the First Order / the Empire have been fighting the Rebels and Resistance and their tactics of snub fighters for the past 30 years. What point, after losing all of these Star Destroyers and all sorts of things, you need smaller gun turrets, or a way to deal with fighters that's quick and responsive, and no one's invented that yet. So you've got this one X-Wing flying around, total Mary Sue, blowing everything up. Oh, look how great I am. And that allows the bombers that are waiting in the wings to come and bomb the dreadnought. Now, the bombers, okay, thematically, they've taken some cues from World War II planes, like George Lucas was supposed to do, or has done, in the earlier dogfights, in that the bombers are not Y-wing bombers, or B-wing bombers for some reason. They're this new, slow, big, heavy thing that drops stacks of bombs, but most of the bombers blow up, except for, of course, one bomber that gets through and drops all of its bombs into the dreadnought and blows it up. Oh, yay. So it's just so cheap. You know that no one's going to die. It just, So anyway, we have that. Then the Rebels, this is where it gets a little bit hazy. So the Rebels jump to light speed. and Hux is summoned up before Snoke. And Snoke, when we see him now, not as an image, as the actual character, he's not slow. He's quick. He's done very well makeup wise or CGI wise. And it very quickly it becomes apparent that this guy's pretty scary. He is very powerful. He is in control. Obviously Supreme Commander. Yeah, and I've got a stupid name like Snoke. But very quickly do you realise, oh, this guy's actually really cool. Let's keep him around. So anyway, Hux explains, well, look, we've got this special way to track them through hyperspace that Supreme Leader Snoke should have known about because it's in his capital ship. But, oh, that's a surprise. So anyway, the rebels are going through hyperspace. The First Order can now track them through hyperspace, and they jump into hyperspace with them. He puts down Kylo Ren. Snoke puts down Kylo Ren, says, basically, you're a kid in a mask, you're an idiot, you're a loser, you stuffed up badly, I don't know why I kept you around, which obviously doesn't go down too well with Kylo Ren, who's very annoyed. Also, Snoke points out that, yeah, you got beaten by a girl that had no formal training and never picked up a lightsaber, you moron. And so that was good. And you see that Snoke sees things. He finds the criticisms there. And that's good. That was really good. It was like, yes, okay. And so that sends Kylo off the deep end. So I think it may be before they jump into hyperspace or after, but yeah, so he goes around, grabs his ship with his wingman, and goes to harass the capital class cruiser. It's a Mon Calamari cruiser that Leia, Poe Dameron, and others are on. Now, this is where the thing gets a bit weird, because I don't know about you guys, but I have never ever heard about capital class ships running out of fuel in Star Wars. You would think in the future where it's set that these things would be running on fission, that they would be lasting for thousands of years or hundreds of years or even a few decades without running out of juice. So suddenly, the Mon Calamari cruiser's running out of fuel. Oh, everyone else, all of our support ships are running out of fuel because we've been on the run all this time. Yeah. So this suddenly becomes a major plot point. Oh, look, we're running out of fuel. We're running out of fuel. Oh, they're running out of fuel. Did you know that? And it's jarring because it's so convenient to the plot. So as far as the rebels are concerned, they can't jump away into lightspeed because they know they're being tracked. And if they can only make one more jump, and then they'll run out of fuel and be at the mercy of the First Order that is following them within striking distance. Now, the First Order can shoot the capital class ships, but they're so far away that the lasers aren't having very much effect on the shields of the rebel ships. Okay, yeah, I guess. And why can't you close the distance? So they try and close the distance a little bit further, which gives Kylo Ren and his TIE fighter buddies a chance to shoot up some rebel ships. And then, because he's still cranky, he targets Leia's ship, and he knows that she's there. She knows that he's there. You see it in the trailer. And he goes to shoot, and then his thumb goes off the button, and he's like, maybe not. But his wingman shoots and blasts out the bridge on the Mon Calamari cruiser. I don't know what happened to the shields there, but yeah. So, Admiral Akbar, Leia, and everybody else on the bridge gets sucked out in the void of space and presumably dies. So you think, oh, well, that must be Carrie Fisher's final performance. Okay, I knew that she was going to die in this because obviously she's not around in real life anymore. That's sad. Okay, cool. So it turns out the TIE fighters can't be covered somehow by the Star Destroyers that are still trailing the Rebel fleet. So they return to base, or return to Star Destroyer. Good. And then, cringy part, There's a close-up of Leia's frozen hand in space, or attached to her body, obviously, but then her fingers start to move, and Princess Leia's theme plays, and for someone that's never shown an inkling of ability in the Force, she manages to full-on make it look like a Mary Poppins flying through the sky thing of pulling herself towards the ship to the airlock so that she can get in. So that's her dress billowing around in the emptiness of space, her hand outstretched, and the Force. That's not how the Force works. Exactly. It just, that was embarrassing. You know, it's like, is she dead or is she not? You know, you're playing with people's heartstrings there, because it's that thing of, we know that she's not around anymore, so, I don't know, it was just, and it was done stupidly. So her hand goes up on the airlock, and Finn and Poe, etc., find her, pull her back in, and she goes into a medical bay. Alright. The other thing is that Finn wakes up, and instead of being in a Bacta tank, like you would expect, he's in this sort of life jacket sort of thing that's full of clear fluid, and it's got all these holes in it where he's pulled himself out of the bed in a hurry, and everything's leaking. So he's wandering around without any alarms going off, like any medical alarms going off. He's wandering around a calamari cruiser, leaking all this clear fluid, looking dazed and confused. And then Poe's like, "Oh, hey buddy, we'll get you patched up and some clothes on." Ha 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 ha. Oh, right, so that's also bad. And that was at the beginning of the movie, and that's another thing that sets you up for what? Anyway, so the rest of the movie really follows around the calamari cruiser being pursued by Snoke's capital disturbingly large ship, and also all these large ships start to get a little bit vague in size. Like, I mean, oh look, there's a big ship. Oh, there's a bigger ship. Oh, there's a bigger ship. It loses something, you know. You should be using these large ships for emotional, terrifying impact. You know, the Executor class Vader's or the Emperor's flagship, you know, they were massive, but we'd never seen anything like that. So I don't know. That's the problem. I'm just one person, a bit of a fan. You've got the whole board of Disney who surely has a creative component, a director there who's supposed to have a creative component. You've probably got teams of people working on, let's come up with a smart idea, or how can we do this better? And this is the best that you've got? So, alright, capital class ships are chasing each other through space. You know, one by one the support ships are running out of fuel, so you've got the Nebulan B-class frigate, the medical frigate, runs out of fuel. Shouldn't be running out of fuel. And so they blast it. Oh, look out, the bad First Order shot, you know, a medical ship like they did in Return of the Jedi. Okay, yeah, they shouldn't run out of fuel, because that's not an issue. Anyway, so, yeah, Leia's out of commission, so they get this other chick, Holdo, Vice Admiral Holdo. I can't remember where I've seen the actress. I'm sure if I looked it up, it would be fine. But pathetic acting. Absolutely pathetic acting. She's got dye in her hair. It's a different colour hair. She has no commanding authority. She has no presence. She has no acting capability. She's not supposed to be a person that you put your trust in and confidence in, because no one seems to follow really what she's saying, and she seems to be a bit, you know, a fish out of water sort of thing. But there's a way of acting as a fish out of water, and then there's, I'm on the camera, what happens now? You know, it's and she doesn't have a uniform. Everyone has a uniform. Everyone else that's standing on that bridge has a uniform. She doesn't have a uniform. Little things like that were annoying. So then you've got Poe and Finn trying to figure out, how can we get past this issue? The Vice Admiral Holdo doesn't seem to have much of a plan, so they try and come up with something. Poe Dameron gets demoted, you know, and they clash because he's headstrong and she's very reserved and all this sort of stuff. Nobody cares. Right. Meanwhile, on Act 2, Rey, it picks up where Rey left off holding the lightsaber, and Luke grabs the lightsaber. This is his ancestral freaking lightsaber. Tosses it over his shoulder. Just tosses it over his shoulder, over the cliff. No, that is not how we treat something that people have as a prop, as a cherished, item in their household, as a replica, because it's Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. This is the thing. This is, if you got to hold that even as a prop, even as a replica prop, you'd be like, this is the Force, And he picks it up, or he grabs it, and he chucks it over his shoulder, over a cliff. Ha ha ha! There's that attempt at humour again. So anyway, Luke's like, no, I came here because I didn't want to be found. I don't want to help anybody. And then he's like, oh, what happened to Han? And I thought, well, hang on. If you're one with the Force, or if you know what you're doing with the Force, wouldn't you have felt it? Yeah, so anyway, it turns out that, okay, so we've got the calamari cruiser being pursued through space. You've got what's happening on Act 2 between Rey and Luke, and with the past history between Luke and Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. And then you've got Poe Dameron and Finn's plan to go and do something else. Okay, so I'll just talk generally about these 3 plot points, or 3 plot threads. So Poe Dameron can't go anywhere, so he tries to get Finn to go, who's trying to look for Rey initially, and they've got this, magical tracking device or something or other. Anyway, who cares? He tries to go to a escape pod, and he meets up with Rose, who is this like Vietnamese Asian lady or girl who stops him from getting into the escape pod because she's sort of on guard duty. She knows her way around systems of the ship, and that's about as exciting as it gets, right? Don't really care. Turns out her sister was the bomber pilot that successfully bombed the dreadnought at the beginning, and the sister died. Okay, that's as much as we care about Rose. So it's now Rose and Finn working together, and it turns out they need a special code breaker to get into the capital ship from the First Order so that they can turn off the tracking system. The tracking system will turn off for 6 minutes. They can jump to light speed and not be tracked and go anywhere in the galaxy. So that's the idea. So to get the code breaker, they contact Maz, I think that's her name, the small alien lady that ran the bar in The Force Awakens. And so there's this really weird little holographic video where she's shooting a whole heap of things off screen, and she's like, oh, it's a union matter, you wouldn't want to be here, pew 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 pew, oh yeah, you've got to go to this this town or this city on this planet, pew 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 pew, and yeah, there's a codebreaker, pew pew, who'll be wearing this thing, pew 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 pew, and that'll be great, pew 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 pew, see ya. Okay, so then they can somehow commandeer a ship to get out away from the First Order. They can jump at light speed in this tiny ship to this other planet, and the planet is bad because it's a casino planet, which is bad, run by a whole heap of arms dealers or rich people who are also bad because they deal in arms and they're profiteering, and it's bad because, casinos and money and arms dealing. Oh, and also there's a magical horse beast thing, set of races that are bad because people are cruel to those animals. Okay, why am I seeing this in a Star Wars movie? What? And basically this chick, Rose, is like Matee out of Captain Planet, where she's like, oh, my heart, oh, my heart. Nobody cares. So anyway, this part is where it gets really bad. Oh, we found the person that we were looking for, but we get zapped by guards before we can talk to him, get thrown in prison. meet this other guy, Benicio del Toro's character, who happens to be a codebreaker. And then he gets them out of prison, and then, oh, well, you know what? What we should do instead is, while we're being chased, no one cares. There's no sense of urgency. Oh, they're being chased. Yep, they're being chased. Yep, great. Then they go and break out a whole heap of these magical racing animals, and all these little kids, for like stable boys and stable girls, stable children, are like, oh, and she shows them a magical ring that opens up to show the Rebel Alliance logo. That will be in Christmas hampers soon, kids. Total product placement and rubbish. We're with the Resistance. It's like, oh, great, okay. And then they all get on the magical creatures and go galloping through the casino and showing all those bad people that, they're galloping. Yay, galloping! Right, and then they go galloping out into the night fields, being pursued by bad people, galloping, and then BB-8 turns up in a ship to rescue them, and then they have a nice little farewell with the forest creatures. Oh, and Benicio del Toro's character is flying this stolen ship with BB-8. So they've got their code breaker, and then they want to go back to the First Order fleet, which they do. Then it turns out that the codebreaker betrays them, and they're about to get walloped, killed, executed, or whatever, and then something else happens. All right, so that's where they're at. That plot thread is completely rubbish. I was sitting there going, what am I actually watching? What is this? This is a Star Wars movie. You could be fitting so much more in character development, interesting plot points. There could be another space battle. How about a lightsaber fight? Anything, right? But no, we get a horse race. I was like, this better not be pod racing, but almost as bad as pod racing, right? Good. Who's next? All right, so Kylo and Rey. This is the Luke Rey plot point thread. Kylo and Rey now seem to magically be able to talk to each other through the Force, where they can sort of see each other. And she's angry at him. He's like, I'm a monster, deal with it. And Luke is seemingly unaware. Anyway, Luke refuses to train Rey because, I just came here to die. I'm on an unfindable planet for a reason. Not interested. I want the Jedi Order to die because they were all hypocritical and rubbish. And, they're all bad. But, there's like these 6 really important ancient Jedi books that they're the last books of the Jedi religion. And, and Rey's like, oh, I've been here before in my dreams. Clearly it must be my parents. And that's great. Anyway, over time, Rey convinces Luke to train her in a way. He's like, I'll give you 3 lessons, and that's going to show you why the Jedi should be destroyed. Off to a good start. So, she can do pretty much everything a Jedi can do. The first time as she sits there and meditates, stuff starts to rise, the rock breaks, and then she's called to the dark side down, like a geographical hole on the island, and Luke's like, hey, you should resist that. You went straight to the dark side. You're very powerful. It reminds me of Ben Solo. I failed him. I don't want to fail you. Rah, or he failed me, or whatever it happens to be. And then Rey is pretty much along the lines of, oh, I'll be fine. I won't do anything bad to you. I'll make it all better. And Luke explains that Ben Solo was corrupted by the dark side, and he wrecked the Jedi Temple that he was setting up. Yeah. Then, in a conversation with Rey and Kylo, Kylo Ren basically says, oh yeah, he didn't tell you the truth, did he? And she goes back to Luke, and Luke says, okay, well actually what happened was, I saw that he was going to the dark side. I saw that there was so much dark in him that I snuck into his sleeping quarters one night and was so convinced that he was Satan incarnate that I ignited my lightsaber over his head and was going to kill him. Briefly. Just for a moment of insanity. And then Ben turned over, looked up, and he's like, oh, and then all I saw was the eyes of a young boy failed by his master. And then they fight, and Rey and Kylo Ren pulls the sleeping quarters down on everyone's head, escapes with a few other students, presumably the Knights of Ren, presumably. But that part in The Force Awakens, where there's the dudes all standing in the rain-soaked field at night, that isn't referenced. That isn't referenced. So that's weird. So anyway, yeah, Luke thought about killing Ben Solo, and yeah. Anyway, so Rey goes into her, dark side of the Force tree bit in Dagobah. Well, not Dagobah, but on Act 2. And she wants to know who her parents are, and it doesn't really say. And that was also, it seemed to be a little bit strange in the fact that there wasn't any information that she got out of that. It wasn't a challenge personally. It wasn't like, there wasn't creepy dark side of the Force or anything like that. It was just unusual. So, that was that. Luke saying basically that I'm not going anywhere, and Rey says, okay, well, after my 2 lessons or whatever, 10 minutes of screen time, I can do everything now. I'm basically a Jedi, and I'm good, and Kylo Ren's bad, but I know that there's good in him, so I'm going to go to him we're going to get the Millennium Falcon to drop me off as they fly past the capital ship of Snoke's. Okay. So anyway, Luke's on Acto. Rey's flying through on the Millennium Falcon. Basically, they drop out of hyperspace, kick her out in an escape pod, which goes straight to the hangar of the big Star Destroyer, and the Millennium Falcon flies off again. Anyway, Rey then goes with Kylo to Snoke. And it's like, oh, wow, this is amazing, And they're standing in the elevator a bit like Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi. And he's saying, she's saying, look, I saw your future, Ben. You're going to be good when the time comes. And if you follow me, or I'll be here and we can be good together. And he's like, no, when the time comes, you'll be evil. I've seen your future. And that's the case. She's like, oh. Anyway, so they turn up and Snoke's there. And Snoke is such a villain. He's an excellent villain. He's got everything planned. He's like, Kylo Ren, you're a moron. I could feel your conflicted thoughts and everything like that. I know exactly what you're going to do. I can see it all in my head straight away. And I encouraged that in you so that she saw it, so that Rey saw it, because Rey wasn't smart enough to see that she was being manipulated. And now both of you are here. And, with the menace and all the red, and the Praetorian Guard and everything, it's just like, oh, what is going on now? And so Rey's like, no, you're not going to beat me. You can't take anything. And he's like, I can take whatever I like. And basically sort of force tortures her, and gets, about her, thinks he knows about her parents and whatever, and that's fine. Anyway, she grabs a blue lightsaber and tries to attack him, and he's like, that's a lot of spunk. And he's just basically throwing her around the room with the Force, not even getting up out of his chair. And it's like, this guy is awesome. And so he's just mentally berating both of these 2 idiot children with lightsabers, and basically, just saying, look, I'm so very clever. And she says to Kylo, look, you he's going to betray you. He's fantastic. He's going to be good and whatever. And he's like, no, I can tell exactly what he's doing. And he gives Kylo's lightsaber back, and Kylo doesn't turn it on, but he's like, okay, now Skywalker, who I thought was going to be an awesome Vader, you better be an awesome Vader now, and you're going to kill this chick, and your journey to the dark side will be complete. And so he turns the Ben turns the lightsaber a little bit, but at the same point in time, he's manipulating the Luke Skywalker lightsaber that's sitting next to Snoke on his throne. And Snoke's monologuing and saying, yes, and I can feel that you're turning your lightsaber and you're going to strike down your true enemy. Ha ha ha. And Kylo turns on Luke's lightsaber, which lances Snoke through the side and kills him. So Snoke dies. We never know about where he comes from. Never know his backstory. No character development other than his was awesome. And now he's dead. Now he is dead. So they just threw away what had been driving internet speculation on YouTube forever, for the past 2 years at least, because of reasons. So, yeah, okay. Then all the Praetorian Guard go nuts and they bring out all these exotic weapons, and Kylo and Rey fight together against the Praetorian Guard, and this part is really good. It's like, yes, this is what it's about. You know, there's dramatic lightsaber fights, you know. In the back of my head, though, I'm still like, she still hasn't had any training and she's, you know, cleaning up Praetorian Guard. You don't get to be a bodyguard of a Supreme Commander by being a loser with a lightsaber or a wacky-do weapon. Anyway, good, so they beat them all, and that's nice. And then Kylo's, of course, like, alright, well, Snoke's dead. I can be the next Supreme Leader, and you need to join me, Rey, and together we can rule the galaxy as side by side as father and son derivatives. And she's like, no, that's not good. And so they end up fighting over Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, and they're both force pulling on it so hard that the lightsaber breaks in half. You just broken Luke Skywalker's lightsaber. Anyway, annoying. And then, you know, there's explosions and whatever, and that's fine. And then Kylo wakes up. Rey's not around. Hux is there, and there's this little quick scene about Hux almost pulling out his blaster to shoot Kylo Ren while he's unconscious, but doesn't because Kylo comes to, and then he's like, all right, well, you know, we need to find the girl, whatever, and Hux is like, oh, well, you know, Snoke's dead, the Supreme Leader's dead, and Ben force chokes him, and he's like, oh, okay, well, long live the Supreme Leader. All right, so Kylo Ren now runs the First Order, essentially, and Hux is his main lapdog. Good. So that's pretty interesting. That was a good arc, relatively good arc. I mean, Luke Skywalker, again, he turned himself off from the Force. He was like a diminished guy. Just come on, man, it's Luke Skywalker. And that was the thing. In the movie, he is afraid of being a legend because, you know, legends fall, essentially. Yeah, so then Luke goes to burn the last remaining Jedi text because he's convinced that the Jedi must end, and Yoda turns up as a blue ghost. Okay, that's fine. Which Yoda would you like? You know, the first Muppet Yoda from The Phantom Menace? No thanks. The CGI one from The Clone Wars? Or the later CGI one from Revenge of the Sith? Or do you go all the way back to The Empire Strikes Back and make up a dodgy copy of the puppet that was sort of made to show how old he is, even though he's in the Force now, so he shouldn't really be that old? Well, you go with the last one. So you have Yoda as a puppet, not Frank Oz's voice, because obviously Frank Oz is dead, as far as I'm aware. And so you've got someone who's got a pretty good Yoda voice, but there's something jarring about it. It's like he's not blue enough or light enough, like see-through enough. It looks like they've got a green puppet that they've put blue over and put a little fairy cloud around. It was just weird. And it wasn't quite Yoda's voice. And on top of that, Yoda speaks a couple of paragraphs, well, or a paragraph of perfect grammar. It's not like, you know, your father he is. You know, it's not like that. It's like, Yes, he's your father, is in fact, and the grammar that identifies me as Yoda and as a character is strangely absent in this little monologue, and that also was jarring. I'm like, what? Yoda doesn't talk like that. Anyway, and then because Luke wasn't going to be able to put it out, Yoda brings down some lightning and blows up the tree, and then he's like, ha ha ha. Well, those books only had old learning in it. They weren't really important. This is one of the lines. A page turner, they were not. You've just destroyed the last part of the Jedi history, and you have a joke about it. Like in Empire Strikes Back, everything was important. Everything was dark and whatever. It's not. I don't know. It was very frustrating. So they just seem to be hell bent on getting rid of the Jedi, getting rid of the old actors. There needs to be room for new people to come into the franchise, obviously. But this just seems to be like, let's get rid of Luke Skywalker. I mean, he's amazing. He's central to the canon, so let's get rid of him. Everybody likes Luke Skywalker. There's several billion people who grew up going, hey, you know what? I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. Let's get rid of him. Yeah, okay. So anyway, last we see Luke Skywalker, he's on Acto, having a cry about life in general. Good. Okay, so back to the Rebel fleet, who are flying along through space, being pursued. Vice Admiral Holdo is getting everybody offside, and basically her plan, while Leia's recovering in medical bay, is to use their fuel to fuel up a whole heap of smaller, unarmoured, unshielded transports, so that they can just skip away somehow. Because apparently the First Order is only tracking and it can only visually see, apparently, the giant Mon Calamari cruiser in front of them. Okay, so they're all she's going to basically put the rest of the Resistance in a tiny set of ships to fly in the front of a big battle fleet. Yeah, that seems like a great idea. Anyway, and then what they're trying to do is get to Crait, the sort of the ready, salty planet that you see in the trailers, because there's an old Resistance base there that's heavily armoured and it's all this stuff, and it's got enough power in it to raise a distress call to the Outer Rim to light the spark of the rebellion. Okay. So when Poe Dameron hears about it, he sort of brings up a bit of a mutiny, holds the people hostage, while Finn and Rose get back to the ship on time, they're trying to get back to the ship or get onto Snoke's ship. Anyway, long story short, the Resistance gets into the smaller ships and starts to leave. Holdo's the last person. You think Leia's going to be like, oh, I'll sacrifice myself? No. Holdo does it because Leia gets better and, tells Poe to pull his head in. So what Holdo does is turn the Mon Calamari cruiser around, set it to light speed, and basically this part of the movie is actually really visually amazing. Sets it to light speed through the Capital class Snoke ship. And there isn't a full-on explosion like the Death Star or anything like that. It is very visually stunning the way it's done. Excellent. That part was really good. So while that happens, there's a lot of confusion going on. But because Finn and Rose weren't really successful in their code-breaking mission, the First Order is picking off transports one by one as they go. So, yeah, that's fine. And they're all sort of drifting towards Crait. Goodo. Now, if I remember correctly, something else happens and Finn and Rose manage to fight Captain Phasma, who's on screen for a little bit longer, but again, Gwendolyn Christie is a fantastic actor. You've seen her move in Game of Thrones and everything like that, but it's just, it's boring. It's boring, and I don't know why. There's explosions going on. Maybe it's too much. You know, you look at the original trilogy with all their faults, and you got Vader, and you got Obi-Wan Kenobi, two dudes, like an old man and a cyborg, fighting it out in an empty hall, oblivious to pretty much everything else. And then you've got, you know, explosions happening and all this sort of stuff, and First Order troops getting around, and all this. It's just maybe distracting and slightly boring, not sure. And then, of course, they're saved by BB-8, and this part was really annoying, driving an AT-ST. An AT-ST in the hangar, activates, pew 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 pew, you know, getting all the First Order troops, and they both look and go, oh, what's going on? And then the top falls off, and BB-8, a droid without any arms, is driving an AT-ST. And basically, they hop on the AT-ST with BB-8 driving and gallop off, like on a magical horse, into the sunset to a shuttle that takes them away, and they don't get shot when they leave. Okay, so all the plot points are sort of starting to come together. Basically, everybody ends up on Crait. And at this point, you go, this is actually a really long movie. It feels long. It feels long. And in the back of my head, I was like, oh, this is quite long. I'm a little bit over it. And then, oh, hang on, we haven't seen Crait yet. So anyway, Crait pops up. And it's really good in ways. Really good in ways. They've got no weapons, or not really any weapons. They've got hardly any soldiers. But it's the way that Hoth should have been done. And there's so many Hoth cues in there, you know, trenches in the ground. The ground's white primarily because of the salt at the top. There's gun emplacements. There's all the walkers. And again, oh, bigger walkers. You know, who cares? So, anyway, there were a couple of shots there where the TIE fighters were coming in and strafing trenches and things like that. And the sound design and the visuals, it's like, yes, that is what it's supposed to be about. And you've got these guys running down the trenches, and, you know, you can see there's a couple of sort of almost point of view shots where you're looking almost down the barrel of the gun out into this white field where these massive walkers are starting to come through, and it's like, oh, you know. And then, again, there's a really large, like, metal armoured door to stop entry into the Rebel base. So, of course, instead of having, which they do have, like 10 of these massive walkers that couldn't just sit there going pew, 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 and melt the door to slag, they had to bring along a special, you know, it's a battering ram cannon. A battering ram cannon. Couldn't it just have been called a door melter or something? Anyway, so for some reason, they all have to hop in to little land speeders, as in you see in the trailer. And they're flying along. Doesn't seem to be any weapons on them, not that anybody can see. And this is better. They all start to get blasted to hell because you've got this overwhelming military might against this very, very ragtag group of faulty flyers, essentially. And so Finn takes it upon himself. The cannon's starting to wind up to melt down the door, and he thinks he's going to commit suicide, essentially, by blowing up the cannon with his little skimmer. And he gets pushed out at the last minute by Rose, who collides with his skimmer with her skimmer, and then the cannon keeps on firing. Okay, and they have this moment where she's like, "Oh, you know, this is how we win, not by killing people, but by saving who we love." Then she kisses him and collapses. Yeah. Okay, then, juxtaposed with that, is a massive explosion, where the First Order are putting a bloody large hole in the door. So that part's good. Hooray. And then, out of the shadows, comes Luke Skywalker. Yes, Luke Skywalker! And he says to Leia, you know, I'm sorry. She says that's fine. And he goes out by himself. And it's like Luke Skywalker versus all these AT-ATs, which I know they're not the MTs or whatever. Out he comes, and Kylo Ren's in his shuttle, and he's like, look, blast this guy, blast him. And so all the walkers fire upon Luke Skywalker and in this cloud of red and white dust, and you think that's it, okay? And of course, he walks through the fire, it stops, and he dusts off his shoulder in a little Bruce Lee sort of move, and Kylo comes down to face him one-on-one, and they fight in a really not a very dramatic way. It's more along the lines of, like, I mean, he just about has two swings at him almost, and Luke ducks and weaves, and that's about as good as it gets. And then he says, "If you strike me down in anger, I will be with you for the rest of your life, just like your father." It's like, well, Han Solo, as much as cool as he wasn't a Force user, so I don't know if he comes back in the Force. And so Kylo Ren slices him through the middle, bum, 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 and he realizes, hang on, he's still standing, and the camera switches over to Acto, and Luke's sitting on the rock of meditation, and basically it's like an astral projection of himself, so he's not even there. And Kylo's annoyed. Luke disappears from Crait, and that gives the rebels enough time to get out. Poe Dameron, while they're having a fight, or this quick fight, Poe Dameron's like, "Oh, look, he's soaking up time for us to leave." So they all look to leave. They can't figure out where they're going, and these little crystal foxes, the ones in the trailer that were supposed to be critical to the plot, well, they show them the way out of the caves. Ooh. Yep. Okay, so they show them out of the way out of the caves, and Rey happens to be there to move some rocks out of the road, because she's a Jedi now and she can move all of the rocks and, the planets and whatever else. And yep. And so they all get away. Isn't that nice? And Kylo Ren's like, ah! Because everything that he's seen is a vision, as in, like, Luke not being there, and so he's consumed with hatred, anger. He's a pretty good actor. Actually, I don't mind that. So that was good. And then Luke Skywalker, it goes back to Luke Skywalker on Acto, and he's been sweating profusely. It's been such an effort for him to do it. And it cuts to like a binary sunset, which I don't know that they had on Acto, but there's a binary sunset, and he fades. And his cloak falls to the ground and flies off in just a breeze. So Luke Skywalker's dead. Luke Skywalker is dead. 2 years ago, it was Han Solo who died at the hands of his son, and then Luke Skywalker's dead now. And I was very angry. Angry in a way about it. Disappointed, perhaps. I think it's lazy writing. I don't know. I mean, his X-Wing was parked under the water, you see in one scene. Anyway, yeah, so Luke Skywalker's dead. Snoke, a very good villain, is dead, and instead he's been replaced with, I don't know, throwaway characters that nobody cares about. Anyway, so in summary, Leia still lives at the end of the movie. You think, oh, she's going to die. I'd prep myself for her dying. She doesn't die in the film. That's annoying, in a way. Then Rey and Kylo still join together sort of through the Force, and she closes the door on him, so he's there by himself, and he's alone and angry. Luke Skywalker's dead. The Millennium Falcon, flies off or whatever. And then the final scene is we're back to the magical casino planet, where all the little stable kids are like, yeah, look, it's Luke Skywalker, the amazing legend. Oh, yeah, and then we did all these other things. Ah. And this one kid walks out, and you don't know, walks out into like sort of the moonlight, and you don't know whether he grabs the broom or whether the broom is force pulled into his hand, because it's very slight, very quick. And so he's standing there in the moonlight with the broom handle like a sword, and he looks down and he sees the rebel insignia on the ring. And that's the end of the movie. So, yeah, I mean, I probably haven't explained it terribly well. And I'm, operating on 2 hours of sleep, and everything like that. We did watch The Force Awakens straight before the midnight showing. And so it sort of left a few questions, quite a few questions unanswered. So Rey's the light side, Kylo's the dark side. Are they going to be called Jedi anymore? I mean, Luke sort of said, I won't be the last Jedi because Rey's there, and I think the books got saved anyway or something, but yeah, it's not Jar Jar Binks. Though the porgs that are in there, you know, the little penguin things, borderline. They're sort of there for the lulz. And also BB-8 was massively overused as again, that character that can do everything. I mean, Mary Sue's the correct literary term. It was just convenient. Everything was convenient. It was just that, you know, CinemaSins will have a field day with this sort of thing. Everything was convenient. There was no sort of danger or anything like that. The people that did die died in soft ways. You know, Snoke took a lightsaber through the kidneys and died. That's all. You know, and then Luke faded out. Phasma fell over into a burning pit. You know, climactic endings. But yeah. So I don't know. I've seen a lot of reviews saying, "Oh, this is the best." You know, a lot of tweets, I guess. "Oh, this is the best Star Wars movie of all time. Oh, it's going to be, you know, amazing. You know, Disney's amazing. Everything's amazing. You know, there's going to be all these new characters that you're going to fall in love with." And it's like, newsflash: we fell in love with the characters that we've all fallen in love with before. You know, you gave us 2 seconds of Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens, where he looked at someone, and then in this movie he was a cranky, defeated old man for the vast majority of it. You made him look a little bit crazy, villainous crazy, and then he fades out at the end without a good showing or anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think the general public are going to like this movie as much as the bigwigs, cinemaphiles are. You know, they might say, "Oh, look, this is a bold new direction for the Star Wars franchise. Oh, there's so much more diversity in the cast," or whatever. It's like, tell a good story. How about you tell a good story? You know, Empire Strikes Back was so riveting, and it's always up there as the best movie of all time, or, you know, or whatever, because it was riveting. It was like, oh, anything could happen. And there are points in the movie where you go, yeah, anything could happen, and then the easy option. So I don't know whether it's the writing, you know, it's clear that whoever's doing the screen humour is not a real genius at screen humour. It's not as bad as like the puns or the sand in, you know, Attack of the Clones, sandiness and all that sort of stuff. But it's just disappointing. It was disappointing. I'm disappointed about it today, slightly angry about it today, but mainly disappointed because there is so much joy and value in the Star Wars franchise, and people stuff it up on and on and on. Like Rogue One, I found Rogue One to be actually pretty good. And I mean, the prequels, yeah, okay, and the original trilogy, yeah, sure. There's good parts, there's bad parts. You know, some things look dated now and whatever. But gosh, can you tell a good story? And so Rian Johnson, the director of this movie, is supposed to be doing the next movie, and then they've given him another trilogy to do. So I don't know. It feels like, oh, let's be progressive because, you know, and get rid of the Jedi in ways so that we can have a different Jedi Order. You know, the Sith. Oh well, the Sith are the Sith. You know, they're not around anymore. I don't know. I mean, how much Star Wars do you need to lose or modify before it becomes a different franchise in ways? So I don't know. As a movie, I found it inconsistent in pacing. Strange, funny bits where there weren't supposed to be funny bits. Humor. A plot. There's probably a billion plot holes. Some days I'm just not clever enough to see them all. But you know, I go in to be entertained. I'm not going in there to be critical. I love the Star Wars franchise, but it's really painful. It's painful today. So you watch it, you make up your mind. But yeah, I think you'll find that. Give it about a week or a fortnight, and there'll be a lot of cranky people on the internet. And not the haters going to hate. It's the people that that love the franchise and care so very much about the direction that it takes. George Lucas wasn't the best helmsman for the franchise, but he had a vision and he tried to follow it as best he could. And it's just a bit concerning as to what, if any, direction Disney are going to take it. So, I guess the Solo movie is the next one to come out. I think that's a movie that doesn't really need to be made. But, yeah, so the Solo movie, and then Episode 9. So maybe in 2 years' time, well, Carrie Fisher's going to die. Who knows what's going to happen for that. Anyway, so they're my thoughts. Hopefully I haven't put you to sleep. Go and see the movie. Go and see the movie. It's one of those things you need to see on the big screen anyway. But just gird your loins for a bit of cringe. And I'll see you in 2 years' time, hopefully with a more positive, happier review. And may the Force be with us all.